Hi everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this webinar today. So previously we talked about, how we had John, who's our manager for the different residents that we have in our case scenario, how he moved his team from working on Excel, where they had static data that wasn't doing anything, and they were reporting on the properties that they own, but the data wasn't really quite dynamic. So how he moved that across to SharePoint list, and we talked about the benefits of that and how he was able to give accountability to his team and to have better tracking of what is happening in the different houses. But then also he was able to really leverage Office 365 by setting up things like approvals, being able to see different version histories, and much more. So this video, really, you can visit it on the YouTube series, and really helped to unlock a lot more of what is possible with Office 365 and why you shouldn't just stay with your standard Excel and explore a lot more what's in the box. In today's session, we're gonna broaden that a little bit more further. So we'll go back to our same scenario where we have John, who manages the different properties, and he has managers that work under him as well. So what John has realized is that there's a lot more available to him in the box in terms of Office 365 now that he's moved his data across to SharePoint list. He's also started to think about some of the other issues that he's got. So one of the issues that he has is the fact that, he has a team of managers that work on site, and he doesn't want them continuously just going back to visit the Excel spreadsheet. I mean the SharePoint list. He wants them to be more dynamic and to be more responsive as issues come up. So this has created, a space for him where something happens, but the managers are not notified straight away, and he wants to correct that. But then he also wants the managers to be able to look directly into the item, have a look at what's been submitted, and then also involve and communicate with others to then say if it's resolved, and for that to then be populated back into the SharePoint list. So this would allow John to have a more dynamic team, and a team that's more proactive rather than reactive, and a team that's really on top of all the issues as they come in. The second problem that John has is that he has a bit of an audit trail that he's going to do. And he's required to put all of his documents in a particular format. And this has caused him some issues because now he's moved to SharePoint list. He's just been asking everybody to copy and paste that information across. This is taking a lot of time from his team. And it's also not making them dynamic, not making them really work in a way that is protecting their time, because it's also tedious work and repetitive work where they have to move everything across. So we're going to showcase how John and his team went about tackling these two challenges to make sure that they're a lot more dynamic and they're a lot more creative and better at problem solving these issues that come across. So I'm just going to share my screen. As you can see here, we have all of the information that we talked about in terms of our SharePoint list. So this information, is all the incidences that have been submitted throughout. So the team comes in, the managers that are working on site, they come into here, or people that work under them, they come in and then submit a new item. So we need to make sure that we notify all the managers what's just happened. So as John was looking at this, he then realized that, he could leverage Power Automate. And we spoke about Power Automate last time. And Power Automate is essentially a workflow engine that allows you to automate some of the tasks that you do on a day-to-day. But what's really wonderful about Power Automate is that it also connects you with the rest of your internal data as well. It can also push externally, but for this scenario, we're just going to look at the internal piece. So here is what John then decided to do. He then decided to create a workflow, which is, again, your automation engine. And he said pretty much when an item is created in that list where we have all of our incidents, he wants to, create what's called an adaptive card. And essentially all an adaptive card is a little card that shows up in your Teams that kind of has information and graphics and just presents the information in a much nicer way. So that way you can, you can see the information that's just happened. But the nicer thing about this adaptive card is the fact that it also allows you to have responses and also has to have graphics. Now, as we mentioned previously before, John and the rest of his team, they all pretty much work on site, but the one thing that they all use is Microsoft Teams. So this will be a massive benefit for them to be able to do, hence why they had the structure. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to submit a new case and we can take a look at what happens exactly there as well. So let me just start this up automatically. Oh, wrong one. So I'm just going to start this up and automatically, yeah. So trigger this manual testing, yeah. So now what we're going to do is we're going to submit something new. So it happened at location Lane Road. Dave was the person that said it, that reported it. He done it via email. The incidence was staff injury and severity was very high. And then we'll say, yeah, you know, the cleaner was hurt in the process of cleaning out the bins for room 1 and room 3, sorry. Yeah, and then we'll give that a time, which is obviously it happened just now as an example. And we'll also say, you know, the site manager that was there was Rose, and then we'll, you know, click save. So what will happen now is this will kick off a process whereby it'll then, you know, pop up into my Teams to just let me know that, you know, a new incident has happened. So in John's case, this will then go off to, you know, the manager that we assigned it to and say to them, you know, we've had a new incident happen. Can you please have a look at it, give some feedback, and then after that, you know, let us know whether it's resolved or not. So if I now head over to my Teams, go into my chat, and go into my chat, yep. And I'll have, you know, adaptive card here, so workflows. If I just scroll down, second. So yeah, so now we've got a card. So now if I just scroll down, as you can see, if I expand this further, as you can see, we now have the adaptive card sent across to us. So this now, you know, gives us the information that we were looking for and kind of gives us a little bit more detail. So we've got things about, you know, location where it happened, you know, the type of incidents, the time that it happened, and also, you know, the severity. So from this information, you know, John's managers are able to really understand the situation and get right on it and contact the right people to then have a resolve. But if this information is not enough, we can link back to that SharePoint list again, because everything is in one ecosystem. We have the ability to easily do that. So for my teams, I can just click on view more information. What this is going to do is open up the web browser, and it's going to head off and, you know, then showcase us the information that we need, which is obviously who reported it and a lot more information as well. And if this had attachments, we could then see those attachments on there. Again, we covered attachments in the previous video that we did and the previous webinar as well. So yeah, once I'm satisfied, I've had a look at that, I can then say, yep, go back to my teams. So if I'm working on mobile, the experience will be exactly the same and say, yep, happy with that, that's been resolved. And once you click resolved, the card then disappears and it goes back into our SharePoint list and then just changes the status to say the issue has been resolved and you've dealt with it. So now with this new way of working, you can see that John's team is now a lot more responsive and a lot more proactive, and they are getting onto incidences and closing incidences down much quicker because they get to see them in real time as they happen and they get to act on them as soon as possible as well. So now we're going to move on to the second issue that I mentioned, which was the fact that, you know, John needed to do audit trail, and he was asking some of his team members to then pass on the work to, you know, the other individuals to say, can you move the data from SharePoint across into, you know, a formatted document, so that way when the auditors come, we can then just present the documents to them and show them everything. So, you know, they were having a lot of errors because it's manual, tedious work. They were not doing as great as they could possibly do because of, you know, so many errors and everything happening. With this, we can easily turn it around and really understand, you know, how to improve the situation. So what John then did was open up Microsoft Word. And in Microsoft Word, if you go into the options, which I won't visit that in this video, but you can find various sources that show you how to do this. You unlock what's called developer mode. So developer mode in Word allows you to be able to have a lot more control over creating templates in terms of that can then talk to Power Automate, our workflow engine, so you can feed in data into it. So what we've done here is we've created this document where we have a picture at the top, and then we have location as a header, and then we've created what's called a label. So as you can see here, plain label right at the top. So this plain label just allows us to create an opening, so an empty shell, where we can then come in later on and fill this information in. We can do this also with tables. So if you're doing invoicing, you can also do that as well, and you can do it with other factors and other ways. So we've created location and we've created the opening, and we've also then created, reporting, created an opening for that too. Same with incidents, and then same with, incident date, and then also description. So what this now does is we'll save it onto SharePoint, so an area where in the cloud where we can access it. And then we're going to show a workflow engine that John created to make sure that this information was then populated into the document. So now if I go to this flow, you will see what's happened. So again, pretty simple 3 steps forward here. So what John did was saying, when a new item is created, I want you to populate the Word document that we created, so that template. And you'll find that there's something very unique that's happened. So because this document has, empty fields that we can fill in, so, that we talked about in developer mode, you then see incident type, date, report, location, and description. So what John did was fill in those blanks to match corresponding where it is in the document. So you imagine you're creating a letter, you can do the same as well, where you can craft these letters in a way they have these openings for you to just slot information in. So, if you remember previously, we obviously created an incident. So what should happen then is we're having this email sent to obviously someone like us, a manager, and we can see the audit trail there for us as well. So now if I head over to my emails, you will see that we now have a new incident report. So it says, hi Rose, new incident report, and it tells you exactly the time that it happened and also for which location that incident report happened. And it just gives a simple thank you message. But the nice thing about this is we now have an attachment. So if you click onto that attachment, you open up a Word document, so similar to a template. But now, if you look at something that's very unique, is the fact that we now have obviously the different locations. So we've got Lane Road, Dave, who reported it, type of incident, and injury date, and then also incident information. So we've been able to take a process that was manual, repetitive, and completely made it all automatic. So as soon as something's submitted once, it then creates all these actions, which is obviously notifying the manager, and then now creating this document. So this saved John a lot of time. So him and his team were able to then concentrate on those business value giving, activities, such as making sure that all their residents were happy and making sure that they are, doing everything possible to just correct and take care of any issues that do pop up. So this was a massive step, saving loads of hours and saving everything. So some of the real case studies that you can apply in your own business is if you generate your own invoices, you could do this where, you have a SharePoint list that has the cost and the pricing, the address of a customer, and then you just automatically slash that across as well. You can now be more dynamic and save yourself a lot more time, just as John and his team did. So as you can see from video 1 to video 2, John has been able to really take the stress out of what they were doing previously from Excel, and they've continued to develop on this as well. And in the next webinar, we are going to take a look at the onboarding process for new managers and how John dealt with that as well. That was a challenge, and also some of the reportings of some of these incidences that we've just noted in this audit trail as well. So this will show you the full scale of everything that Office 365 can do. And thank you so much for attending this webinar. And if you're watching online, thanks so much for watching online as well. Hopefully you've learned something that's valuable.